So now VS Motion. Again, if you know ADCs, you know that the virtual service is the key thing. Yeah, you can have some configuration parameters. Do I support non-local real servers? Things like that. But the VS, that's the application. That's the core of what it is the fabric is supposed to be delivering. This is your ADA, this is your Exchange farm, this is your link or Skype for Business, this is your website. This is the core. It's defined as a series of virtual services, our terminology. And so what we decided was that since this was such a critical component, we would come up with an idea of VS Motion. So those of you that have worked in the virtual world know there's VM motion. Well, we said if you can move a VM, you can move a VS. And so what we said is, there's a use case where a customer has deployment in hardware, does his QA testing in an Amazon account, and delivers his final production virtual service application in Azure Cloud. These can be any platforms. Remember, ubiquity. So VS Motion says, okay, I got this working. I'm the developer. I think I got it working pretty good. I'm going to turn it over to QA. QA may come back and say, no, it's broken. Try again. Or they may say, yeah, we can sign off on this. Go ahead and put it into production. Remember that a VS is literally hundreds of pieces of human configured information. Trying to replicate that successfully twice is an opportunity to induce error. So what we've done here is made this a single button capability. And we can do that because we have this platform ubiquity. Because a VS definition in Azure Cloud looks exactly the same as the VS definition in hardware. And another use case that we're now seeing much more of, thankfully, is people looking to come out of, not necessarily out of colo, but a lot of people are doing cloud bursting, especially retailers or florists. We have a florist. On February 13th, he does a lot more business than he does on any other 100 days of the year. So on February 12th, he wants to burst, he wants to burst his application into the cloud to gain scale and then close that down at a later date. Rather than having to do software control and service control, he simply has VS Motion. I know this VS is working. I'm going to spin up something in the cloud, and I'm going to VS Motion down to it. Again, API weakness. We would love to be able to now, I will be transparent. You'll notice there's only one bidirectional arrow. So this is there today. This is in work. And this is planned in our current product development. This is hard. Those of you that have worked with F5 know the dreaded word iRule. iRules are hard. We don't have iRules. So taking a VS with 150 iRules and making it a VS with content rules in a load master is difficult, but it's doable. We already have the ability to take an F5 backup and create a model load master deployment. As we get closer to making that model perfect and really being able to do the iRule transition, then in this direction only, we will be able to do VS Motion. Nginx, we believe, will be markedly easier to tackle. They never adopted the iRule. So that's where we are today. KEMP to KEMP today, F5 to KEMP shortly, we hope, and other ADCs to KEMP as their APIs mature and this becomes possible.
Do you have any kind of read on what percentage of F5 customers are actually using iRules?
We're technical guys. The marketing guys might. You don't have
I don't know. No.
I wouldn't even have thought to ask the question, so no.
So
What we do know is that the few customers that have come to us and said, we can't afford to bring F5 into the cloud, have you got a cheaper solution? And we say, yeah. They say, well, great. Here's our iRules. And professional services goes to church, comes back from church, and starts converting the iRules. It's the ones we've seen have had large numbers of iRules.
Okay, that's interesting because I think we've been seeing the opposite, that a lot of our customers spend a lot of money on F5s and then they only use the most basic features, which they could have used almost any ADC for.
Great. Send them to us.
Yeah.
What we're seeing.
Have the capability, should the need arise.
Well, it's a big, powerful box and they spend a lot of money, so it must be useful.
No, and again, we're lucky to be, Kurt said we're 200 plus employees. We are, but we don't feel that makes us a big company. We're driven, most of the clouds whose names you didn't recognize, those are clouds we've been driven into. A customer's come to us and said, geez, I'd really love to run in cloud VPS. And we said, well, okay. Old Micheal Higgins will figure out how to get it running in cloud VPS and we'll get back to you in a day. So what we're seeing in terms of what we call Project Red, this idea of being able to take an F5 and make it into a load master, is being driven by specific customer requests. I mean, yes, it's cloud washing or F5 washing, right? We want to say we can do this for any F5 customer. But we have specific customers that have come to us and said, I have the two big boxes and they're working fine, but they aren't going to work for me in Azure. What am I going to do? I don't want two entirely different ADC environments. And so for those customers, we're making the effort to understand how does this iRule become this content rule. Okay, quick demo, real quick. I hate that I have to be here. All right, so I told you I had a pretend development environment, development test environment. That's actually one of my Azure Stack machines. So I'm going to go to my Azure Stack machine. If the VPN is up, yes, thank you, Lord. And I'm going to go to Service Configuration. And the only button I didn't show you is this one that looks like copy and paste. And the guys have agreed I can move the 80. Okay, the 80. So this is VS Motion, source and target. So I've inherited the source. That's my development machine. I'm going to send that to LM39. LM39. And I want him to use the VS address of 10.0.0.13, but I want him to put this up on port 8080. And you can see I have two buttons, copy and move. If I use move, I'll get shot because it gets deleted once it's successfully transferred. So I'm going to use copy. And basically what we're now doing is taking all of the VS information from the Azure Stack machine and plopping it over on 39. So 39 now has an 8080. You see I couldn't move it on 80 because he already had one. Now has an 8080 up and running. So that's VS Motion. I mean, it's...
So you're effectively copying configuration over.
VS configuration.
Yeah.
Now, there are some caveats here. If you can see that... Oh, you can't see. Let me go into it. you can see that 8080's real server is on that address space. Well, what if this ADC didn't have access to that address space?
Yeah, of course.
Problem.
Yeah, that's
Right?
why I ask whether you're just copying configuration over.
Yeah.
I can list a number of things that could be problematic with that.
Yes. So the caveat of VS Motion is we will move it even if it won't come up. And the
don't
reason
know
it
whether
won't
it
come up is because you no longer have network access to the real server, the application server farm. And that's your responsibility to fix. We did 92%. The 8% is yours. There's really, short of inventing how, there's no way to fix that because we have no way to know what the real servers on the destination network are named. So that's it. I mean, that's VS Motion. I know it was a pretty quick demo, but it's a pretty comprehensive thing to do. I've now moved what could have been Skype for Business. If you've ever configured Skype for Business, it's 18 VSs, 2 of which have multiple sub-VSs. I mean, this is a complex configuration, and I moved it with the click of a button. More importantly, other than the real servers, I wasn't given the opportunity to mess it up. I've taken the human out of that picture.